Hello, and welcome to this episode of Faith and Community. I'm your host, the Reverend Kate Seitz Bortner, Associate Pastor of the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of York, and this show is about faith communities in our area and the work that they do to make York stronger, healthier, and more connected. My very special guests today are from Tidings of Peace Mennonite Church, and I do have to say what I consider the Tidings of Peace community, because it is like a village. Austin Schenk and Keyshawns Washington, welcome.
Thank you.
So glad to have you with us this morning. So I know that there's a lot to your story, but we have to start somewhere. So Austin, start us at the beginning.
All right. Well, we are from the Mennonite Church that is on the 300 block of East Poplar Street. It's at 329. And that has been going 60 years this October and has been a tremendous blessing to grow up there. And my dad is the fourth pastor there. The school that we started 19 years ago is just down the block at 318. And so we are right on the corner of Pine and Poplar, basically, on that block. And I grew up right beside the church, and so that's kind of where my stomping grounds are. But we have been tremendously blessed to grow up as Christians. We have not everyone around us has the blessings that I have grown up with. And that's somewhat we're going to hear about later from Keyshawns' story, where he came to the church and realized that there is a lot more to life than what he was experiencing. So what else do you want to know?
Well, I know that I have known your mother and father for a very long time, and that's been a blessing for me, honestly, knowing your family. They came to York as young missionaries, I think, and made the commitment to York City, to the neighborhood, and to raising their family here. So we all were in the beginning when we met. But say a little bit more about your family.
Okay. Well, that is true. Their first year of marriage they spent over in Lancaster County, where they both grew up. And but they came into the city through our Bible school. The church had been doing some Bible school, and my mom came first to help with that. But my dad, he decided that he wanted to come because his fiance was coming. So he comes along and found out that this is going on. But the first night of Bible school, there was no kids in her class. The other classes were there, but no fourth graders. And so he said, well, let's go find some kids. So they went out on the street and said, are you in fourth grade? 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 And they got a class, and by the end of the week, it was the biggest one there. And
they were a good team.
Yeah.
Already.
And so the church saw that and said, we want that guy to come. And so they connected in other ways, and he became the pastor. But as you said, they wanted to live in the city. The former three pastors just came in for the services, and so they didn't have the connection that my dad was able to make by living right there. And so they started their marriage living in the church when you first met them, and then moved right beside to the house next door. And so we're able to make a lot of connections that way.
And then your family grew so much that you had to move to a different house.
Yes, exactly. My parents have 3.5 children. Sorry, 2.5. There's 6 children, and then there was two more, so that's 2.5. 8 children, and we had to move to the 800 block of East Poplar, East Market rather. And so we've been able to have a little bit more room, but we still come home to the church and the school, and that's where we do a lot of our ministry. Well,
and now that you're grown and very recently married, you've moved into a house on that block in East Poplar Street too.
Yes.
So
I'm actually now buying the house from my dad, and I'm working at remodeling it to rent out the house that I grew up in, and we are currently living right beside the school. after I return from college, we'll live in the house that I grew up in. So I'm very excited about that.
Well, that is very exciting. The story of that is so interwoven with the congregation and family life and life in the city and on that block, education and housing rehab, which your life has been shaped by the city, and you and your family in turn have shaped the community. And that's a very powerful story, and one that spans over 2 decades,
yes.
I know. And congratulations to the church, too, on its 60th anniversary. Well, you say you started the school 20 years ago, just about 20 years ago. And I know you started with 5 students, but Keyshawn, I'd like to kind of switch to you now. And how many students are in the school now? Do you know?
Approximately 40, maybe 39.
39 or 40 students from what grade to what grade?
Ranging anywhere from kindergarten to, I would have been the oldest student in our class. We go up to 12th grade. But
okay, so it's a full curriculum school. And how many teachers are there?
There's 10 staff members.
10 staff members.
10 staff. How did you come to the school? Let's talk a little bit about your experience. How did you know about it?
Well, before I came to the school, I came to church, and it all started when I was about 8 or 9 years old. For some reason, it just gets younger and younger when I'm told that it happened. I think it was at least when I was 8. And I was living on South Duke Street, and I was invited to Bible school on Tuesday nights. And when they knocked on my door, and the first thing I thought was, what is this guy doing in my neighborhood? The street was, Duke Street wasn't the best neighborhood, and so you didn't see guys like the guy that knocked on my door very often. So I thought it was like a gas man or a bill collector or whatever. So I was just like, nah, whatever. So I was going to shut the door. My dad came to make sure that it wasn't a bill collector or something. And so he's talking to him, I'm sitting down on the couch, probably went back on my video game system. And he came back in, and I was going to Bible school the next week. So I was like, okay, well, so I got to go to Bible school. And my experiences with church before that weren't very good. It was a lot of candy, a lot of enjoyment, but I didn't learn very much. And so I was a kid that liked to know what I was doing and know why I was doing it. I was very stubborn. And so looking at that, I can get candy at home. I can play video games at home. I can be loud at home, so I'm just going to stay at home. So when they invited me back to church, I wasn't very excited. And so I showed that. I showed that in my actions. I showed that in my behavior. And I think we have yet to find a kid that has caused as much chaos as I have.
Amen.
I was a very, very bad kid in Bible school, and that's what I'm remembered for. And so in Bible school, it kept going, and eventually got suspended for a few weeks. And after that, I gathered some, I guess you say I grew up a little bit more. And Austin got involved with me and invited me over on Tuesday nights to have Bible studies with him. Now, Bible school had switched to Thursday nights at this point. They moved it to Thursday nights. So on Tuesday nights, I was with Austin. And he didn't know exactly what he was doing with his Bible studies. The content of it wasn't exactly great, but just the relationship that I was gaining with him helped a lot. And that's what sparked me to come to church. And when I came to church, I didn't enjoy the morning services, so I kind of hang around for Sunday school most of the time. But eventually I got interested in the morning church, so I was hanging around. I got baptized in our church when I was 13 years old. Wow. And ever since I've been coming faithfully and enjoying it. And so last year, some things were going on in my parents' house, and so there was a couple conflicts there. And so I asked, can I go to their school? And at first my mom was like, you asked me this 3 years ago. And at that point, I wanted to go to college for 8 years and become a psychologist and be really successful. But my motives kind of changed as I got older. I wanted to serve the community. I wanted to get more involved in the city, and I love the city. The country scares me. So, I was enjoying being in the city, and I don't need to make a lot of money. I just want to make an impact on my community. So I said, Mom, I don't want to do what I want to do before, because she didn't like the idea of sending me to our school to do that, to go to college for 8 years. She thought I should go to another established, bigger high school and try to get scholarships and credibility. And so I was like, okay, that makes sense. But then I didn't want to do that anymore. So there's no excuse not to go to this school. And so she allowed me to. And I came in. I was the oldest student. There's about 5 or 6 high school students, but me and a guy named Angel, we were the only high school students. And so it was a little awkward, but I was the guy that was always watched. If I slipped, kids were watching me. If I wasn't doing all the work I was supposed to do, if I was napping, they'd want to know why I was napping. Why does Keyshawn get the nap? And so it's a lot of things that were leading up to me coming to school, but I've enjoyed it ever since.
So you were, in some ways, for good or ill, the one who set the bar. You kind of were the other students looked at you to set the standard for application and behavior and attitude.
Yes, very much.
Was that a burden?
In some ways, you go from the public school. I went to William Penn. It was 1,000+ students, and you're moving on to a school of 40 kids, and see you're not the prime example in a big school like that. But then you come down to this smaller school, and I knew all the students already, most of the students at least. All the students that weren't new I had known at some point, because I'm involved with the ministry in itself. I'm a member, and I do a lot of the evangelistic outreach, help with that. And so I knew all of them, and so they saw Keyshawn coming in, and they were like, ooh, what's going to happen here? And so, yeah, it was a burden sometimes, because everybody's watching you, and if you slip, you're not being a good example. And of course, I actually want to go to college to come back and teach here. So I'm already trying to build relationships as I'm a student. And so God has set this up in a very beautiful way. I'm a student for 1 year. I have a year not necessarily open, but available to help at the school some. And then I go to college for 2 years, and I come back much older and more mature and have experience not only in that school setting, but also in further education.
So what started as a relationship with Austin has turned into a life in this community, and in some ways, it's made you be a better person than you ever wanted to be as a young fella. Where will you go to college?
Up in Guys Mills, Pennsylvania. It's called Faith Builders, and it's an educational program that has been going on for quite some time now. And it has 3 tracks of study. It has teacher apprenticing, which is what I'm going for. It has general studies, and it has church ministries for people who are planning on going into ministry overseas or whatever they decide to do. Teacher apprenticing is a 2-year track, and it runs over a lot of the necessities for the first 2 years of college for a teacher. And so if I would like to go get accredited further on, I may do that, and the credits are transferable to other colleges. So my plan is to go for 2 years to that college, and then move into the school and see what I'm, like Austin is, see what I'm going to be able to be used for. And after that, if I need to go get accredited, then I will do so.
Well, you're just at the beginning. You can only make so many plans ahead, and the rest you just step out and see what comes to you. You told me a little bit about you're working to save money to pay for your college. Tell the viewers a little bit about your plan, your strategy for raising that money.
Well, one of the great things about our school is that it's more personal. They help you in very personal ways. They get involved with the parents. They like to. They want to know what you need help with, and so I needed help with college. And one of the standards my mom set, probably the only standard that my mom set going to school here, is that I go to college afterwards. And so I already had plans to do so. So I said, fine. And so the school, Brother Clayton, the pastor and administrator there, he helped me get a fund established for post-secondary education. It's called the Keyshawns Post-Secondary Education Fund or something like that. And yeah, it was just a beautiful setup. And so this past year I did a fundraiser for weight loss, and lost 30 pounds and made some good money there. And I've been working through school hours, because the first marking period I did a lot of work, and I was able to be lax. And then in the last marking period I had a lot more work to do, because I had to finish up all the gaps that I didn't do, all the work that I didn't do that I didn't feel like doing at that point. I had to do later on, which I learned a lesson from that, to not just do all the fun stuff first. But yeah, and so now what I'm doing is 1,000 hours community service before I turn 18, which is in February. And I have sponsors who are sponsoring me per hour that I work. So I'm servicing the community. I'm looking for jobs in the community that I can service others and just bless them and help them. And as I go, people are donating in my fund per hour that I serve the community.
So if I wanted to help you achieve your goal, I could write a check to the Tidings of Peace Christian School Keyshawns Education Fund?
Absolutely.
And it would help you get to college?
It would. Absolutely.
Wow, I would love to be able to do that. And perhaps some of our viewers would like to help support your vision for the future too. It's a powerful story, Keyshawn, to see how you've committed to the school as the school and these people have committed to you. And I think that it's an example of the power of relationship and presence.
Very much so.
You know, you came in with a chip on your shoulder and a lot of bad habits, and you believed in him and said, "I'm not going to let you go." Yeah, good example.
Yes.
So, what's another way that you manage, the school manages to sustain itself?
Yes,
takes a lot of money.
That is a very good point. And we don't have any government funds. We only are supported by the funds that people give. We have an opportunity for businesses to, through the EITC program, they can, in lieu of taxes, they can give donations to our school, and it actually gives them tax credit. So that is a tremendous benefit to us and to the businesses who do it.
Sure is.
There is also just church donations that come in. But one really fun fundraiser that we did, it raises fun and it's fun, is we get to serve the community by picking up trash. It's our annual Trashathon, and that happens September 27th. It's the last Saturday in September. And so we just get a bunch of people to come in out of the city as well. I think last year was about 100 volunteers who came in and just picked up as much trash as they could. And we get sponsored per ton of trash we pick up. So this past year was 17 tons.
17 tons of trash.
Yes.
Taken off the streets of York City.
Yes.
That in and of itself, I salute you and all of the 100 volunteers who helped to do that. That's incredible. I'm still not sure how picking up trash raises the money. So tell me how that works.
Exactly. So our students or some of the people who come in get to tell people, hey, I'm going to York City to pick up trash for Tidings Peace Christian School. And they tell about the school, that we're a nonprofit. We help children who are from broken homes, who need help. And we get to serve them and the city by picking up that trash. So then they tell people that, and it gets people excited.
Sure.
So then we just have a way to give that money per ton of trash that we pick up. So they can say, I'll give $5 per ton, and then if we get 17, you multiply that times 5, and that's the donation that you give. But some people are kind of scared because they don't know, how many we'll get. So they can also give a one-time donation just for the fundraiser. All
cash accepted.
Yep.
Yeah.
Very much
so tell me how much money you've raised, say, in the last couple of years. What do you get a year?
Okay. Our budget has been increasing as our school has been growing, but at this point it's about $150,000 that we have to raise each year, and God has been very faithful. This year I think we made $170,000, and
on the Trashathon?
No, not the Trashathon. In our whole budget, our total budget. Yes, the Trashathon was about $8,000 or $9,000.
Wow.
That supported us.
That's amazing.
Last year's Trashathon has given us a brand new learning center, and that is a lot of fun.
Well, talk about that, because that's when I was there last time, your dad said we just redid the learning center, and then he told me about the Trashathon money made it possible.
Yes.
I was just blown away by that.
Exactly.
So describe for folks who've never been there what the Learning Center looks like and what you've done to it.
Keyshawn made a few mentions to the fact of how he does his schoolwork, how he went ahead on it and then kind of slacked back. We have the self-paced curriculum. So students who come who are behind their grade level, we test them and say, okay, here is where your grade level is at, and this is what you work at. So maybe in math, they're very far ahead, and in English, they're farther behind. We are able to, cater to them in that way. The problem is then we can't have a regular classroom. Right. We don't have desks that they sit at and there's a teacher. Our job as teachers is to come around to them at their individual offices. So this learning center is built up with each person has a office that has dividers so they can't distract each other, they can focus on their work, and they set their goals for the day. We say everyone needs to set at least 20 pages, and then they choose, well, I want to do 5 in math today and I want to do 10 in English, or however they spread that out. So they set their goals to do, they get those done, and then as they get each book done, they get stars. They have they get to go together. Sometimes we have group and prizes for those who get the stars as a classroom. How many stars can we get? Incentives for getting success. And so this year we had our math and our science on the computers, and so each classroom was able, each desk was able to have a computer, which was a huge upgrade from last year where we had to share the computers, and it just caused a lot of distraction and less learning because our setup did not have the dividers on it. Now they can learn right at their desks with their own computers, and that was made possible by Trashathon. So
it's a remarkable
delighted.
One big room with 30 students in it, each at an individual soundproofed carrel. And that individual learning program is what a luxury, actually, to be able to give a student that kind of help and attention to succeed and learn to the best of their ability. I started school in a 2-room schoolhouse.
Yeah.
So I was in with all 4 grades as a 5-year-old, but there were no barriers. Now the advantage of that was if I managed to keep my mouth shut and my ears open, I learned the 2nd grade lessons, the 3rd grade lessons, and the 4th grade lessons. But there were distractions. But I have a real appreciation for that kind of group. The lessons that I learned, the best lessons I learned, I think were not the ones in the book.
Yeah.
But they were in the room with the people and developing those relationships. You said something about progressing at their own rate. Keyshawn, you told me something about your year. You came into the school as you had just finished your sophomore year. What was the goal you set for yourself?
I wanted to do 2 years in one. Yeah, I wanted to graduate a year early so I could spend this year working towards college.
And how did that go?
Well, I was very cautioned that, hey, don't set in stone that you're going to do this, because some people told me you're not going to be able to do it. Some people told me shoot for it, maybe you can, but no one really told me you can. Because it's a lot of work. It's a huge commitment. And so you're doing twice as much work every day, and even more than that because I came in with more commitments, more requirements that I had to meet because I had not been there before. And so, yeah, I went in, and then the first marking period, I finished about a year's worth of work. The problem, like I said before, is that I finished a year's worth of work and all the fun stuff. And see, we do maintain academic balance, but because I had so much, I had more lax because I was doing 2. And after that marking period, they said, okay, you're doing 2, let's go for it. And so I did a lot of work towards college during those next 2 marking periods, and I did work for sure, but working towards our student convention and just raising money. And Yeah, it worked out well.
Yeah, so I'm
fourth
wondering-
marking period, a lot of work to do.
So you finished your junior and senior year in 1 year.
Mm-hmm.
You have graduated. You're a or a high school graduate now.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if the rest of the students are thanking you for setting such a high bar.
Mm-hmm.
Now they're going, well, Keyshawn did it, so maybe I can do it.
There is a student that is already looking to graduate 2 years early, so
Wow.
I wonder how he's going to do with that. But he's very motivated to do extra work next year, and that's exciting.
Well, one of the things that I'm hearing both from the programs of the school and from you individually is the examples that you're setting for individual agency, for people taking responsibility, for setting their goals, meeting their vision, actually for dreaming, which is, I think, a rare commodity for young people in our culture today, even to think that they might have a dream that extends beyond the next block. And your determination and entrepreneurial spirit. You set a good example, and Keyshawn, you're fixing to come back and continue that. And I am just so proud to know about this program and this community in my own city, because I really care about it too. And I want to thank you both for everything that you do, for your commitment. What are some of the other fun things? You're on summer break now.
Yes, exactly.
So I imagine that you're doing other things.
I would
now.
just like to brag on Keyshawn a little bit. I just got married, and I had been doing a lot of the ministries that Keyshawn is now taking over. And I just, as he mentioned earlier, I took him in as a son in the faith, and he has been tremendously doing far above what I can imagine in taking over some of those things that I had been doing. He just got done with directing our VBS for our church, and that's pretty...
Excuse me just a second, VBS is Vacation Bible School in the summer?
So that was a tremendous thing for someone younger than 18 to be able to do, and he did it quite well. And he also did a tremendous gift to us in that we have other ministries like the Thursday night Bible school that he mentioned earlier. We have our summer Bible school. We have a Friday night cafe that I didn't even mention, but that is every Friday night we get people coming into our house that we have free food and fellowship, and we just have a really good time. That is something that we wanted to get more of our school families involved in. And that's kind of my dream about after I come home from college to do that family working kind of thing, to get our whole ministry involved, everyone to experience everything. And Keyshawn has done a great job as a student bringing the students to Bible school and bringing them to cafe and helping them to come to summer Bible school. He's just done a really good job. And so God's been good, and Keyshawn's been awesome.
That's great. You're a good team.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's worked out. So in 60 years, you've touched a lot of lives. Do you have any idea how many students have gone through the school in 60 years? I know you started with 5.
Yeah. The school actually is only 20 years old, so
That's
we haven't...
That's true.
I have no idea what the number is. We started with 5, and it was under 10 for maybe the first 3 years, and then it's grown since then. We are about around 30 or 40 each year, and so it's been a lot of lives touched. At our 50th anniversary for our church 10 years ago, there was just so many people that showed up out of the woodwork that I had no idea.
That's what I was wondering. Who comes back, and do you ever get to say, learn where are they now?
That's why I'm looking forward to October to see at our 60th anniversary who shows up, and it was just really encouraging for me when I was that young to see that this is a ministry that has been has a good foundation, has been touching lives for a while. There's a lot that we do that we don't get to see until we get to heaven, and we don't know what the results are. But when we get to see people coming back, and we go to the grocery store and say, "Oh, I know you," and it's just really good, especially for me growing up with my dad having done a lot of the starting of things, starting the school and starting some ministries, to go to the grocery store with him and say, "Oh, this is," they know my dad. and to catch that same vision for my life, that my children could say, oh, this ministry has been going on and it's much bigger than us. So we praise God for that.
Well, I know you probably hear this all the time, but if I did not know who your father was, just spending 15 minutes in conversation with you, I would be able to guess. That sense of humor is not the least of the things that he's given you.
He says he gets it from me, so I don't understand.
Yeah, he was cracking the same kinds of jokes before you came along. So I think that I remember you saying that you're also involved in community gardens in the city?
We actually, my dad got that connection with the school district for the old Smith School. There was not the Smith School. There was one.
Hannah Penn.
No, it wasn't even Hannah Penn. There's another school that was shut down over on the East End that I can't remember the name right now.
Yeah, blanking on that.
But he just got permission to use some of their lawn to have a garden, and so he did that. But this year, going to my wedding in Arkansas and different things going on, he wasn't able to. But our church has come together and has grown a lot of good vegetables from that, and so it's a awesome way to use that land that no one else was using before.
Yes, that's one thing that our congregations have in common. We have a community garden too,
Yeah.
and it's just wonderful to be able to, as you said, be using land that's in the city that would otherwise just get mowed or not,
Yes.
be littered on, and cultivate the land and have people getting to know each other in the garden, and then sharing the produce with people who don't have a garden necessarily. So that's something that we're really enjoying too.
Yes.
Yeah. So the community garden, you've got, you're rehabbing housing stock. How many of the buildings in the 300 block of East Poplar Street do you now own or occupy?
Okay. We have the church building and the school building. Then there's 3 that are for staff, and then we have the house that I'm working on that we'll live in eventually. And there's one that my dad just sold to a member from our church. So that would be 7.
7 in one block.
Yeah.
Well, I know, as I mentioned when we were talking before, I worked for the city police department in community services for years. And I remember neighborhood watch meetings on the sidewalk in front of Bertie Jenkins' house, which, as you tell me now, is the house that you're working on. And your presence in that block has transformed it into an oasis of neighborhood in a pretty transient and up and down kind of city life, as we see. I know just as a city, people move around a lot, and people come and go, and they'll start the school year in one neighborhood and end up the school year in another neighborhood. And so maintaining neighborhood stability is a real challenge. And what it requires are anchors, and people who really, as you said, Keyshawn, want to come back and give back. So were you born and raised in York here?
Yes, I grew up on East Wallace Street my first 7 years and moved to South Duke Street. And so growing up in the city, I experienced a lot of the bad things because East Wallace at that time was right on the corner of some really bad neighborhoods. I don't think itself was really bad, but you're surrounded by a lot of pretty shaky positions. I'm down the street from good school, but and so moving to Duke Street got even worse. But I've never been one to be afraid of that type of stuff because of the way I grew up, because of the things I faced. So I think that God has blessed me with, and I wouldn't say fearless because I'm definitely very paranoid about some things, but I find my upbringing a blessing. My parents did a good job in giving me what they could with what they had.
You're smart enough to be cautious.
Yeah.
There's one of my favorite authors has written a book about foster care and tough childhoods, and she said, the hard times growing up as a child are what grew my character. She said, I'm not sure I'm doing any favors for my kids because their idea of hard time is she's got more raisins than I have. So I think it's it's important to maintain the attitude of a student. And when things happen, ask yourself, what's the lesson here? What can I do with it? So, what else do we want viewers to know at this point? The school location and address. If somebody wants to volunteer for the Trashathon,
Yes.
Austin, how should they go about doing that?
Yeah, we have, you can call the school at 717-843-4562, and that you can just tell them you want to help, and we'll give you information about where to meet. But that can also, if you just want to give a donation, that can be done as well. You can do that on our website at tidingsofpeace.org, and we can. We would love for more help and more donations to continue the ministry there. The other thing is that we're still accepting applications for students this year. So if people would like to send their child, K through 12, you can also call the school and we'll arrange a tour, and love to show you what's up.
That's great. I'm glad you mentioned that, because this is sort of the time of year that people are thinking about where they want to go to school. And Keyshawn, if someone wants to help you toward your goal of raising money for college, they can contact Tidings of Peace the same way?
Yes.
And just indicate that their donation or their interest is in contributing to the Keyshawn Education Fund, Keyshawn, Washington. Thank you so much. You know, I'm going to go, I know we have some pictures of the Trashathon, and just give me a snapshot of what it looks like. People show up at some time in the morning. What happens to, where do they put the trash, and what happens to it?
It's really nice because we work with the city, and they give us a trash truck. We also get other dump trucks and things to put all kinds of items in. The incinerator gives us free passes because we're picking up litter, so we just give those to the truck drivers. They go deliver it. This past year we had it in the parking lot of Asbury Church was one of our stops, and over by the food bank we also had two places people could bring trash to. The volunteers usually come in pickups or van loads, but then the pickups go around wherever they pick up the trash. They make piles of it. The pickups pick up those trash piles and bring them back to the trash truck. And we have to start at 8 o'clock in the morning so that we have plenty of time to get it in the trash truck and to the incinerator before 12.
This is just 8 to 12?
Yes, it's 3 hours.
3 hours?
12 is when it closes, so we actually have to be done by 11 or 11:30, you know. So
gosh.
Just 3 hours of pickup.
17 tons of trash in essentially 3 hours.
Yes.
There you go, folks. It's a real challenge, and it sounds to me like a great project to get involved in. So I'm going to add my personal challenge to Tidings of Peace School and Community and Austin and Keyshawn. Consider getting involved in this Trashathon if you want to support the school or just get litter off the streets in York. We'll all be working to some pretty good goals. Contact the school and help out with the Trashathon. Thank you both so much for coming on the show, for telling your story. I know the story will continue, and I hope that you'll come back sometime with more.
All right.
And Keyshawn, I'll invite you back so that we can hear where is he now in a couple of years. Good luck with your future.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you all for tuning in to this episode of Faith and Community.